I'd like to turn to 1 Corinthians in chapter 11, where we read Paul writing about the Lord's table. 1 Corinthians 11 and verse 23, in the night in which the Lord was betrayed, he took bread. When he had given thanks, he broke it, saying, "This is my body," verse 24. "Do it in remembrance of me." Very important word when we come to the Lord's table. I have to do this in remembrance of him who died for me on the cross, recognizing why he had to die on the cross, that it was my sin which put him on the cross. And the more I realize that, the more I'll be able to take part in the Lord's table in a worthy manner. None of us are worthy to take part, but we can take part in a worthy manner if we recognize and keep in mind, if you remember him and remember that he took this in the night in which he was betrayed. He was going to the cross. And do this in remembrance of me. That broken bread symbolizes his body broken, and the cup symbolizes his blood shed. And I need to ask myself, why did he do it? Because of my sin. Because of our careless attitude to sin. Even though we have taken part in the Lord's table so many, probably hundreds of times. And if there's still a careless attitude in you towards sin, you need to really examine yourself. If your attitude to sin is not becoming more and more serious as time goes on and we keep on breaking your bread, it's just a ritual, my brother, sister. If it's not helping you in any way, just a ritual. And in fact, it says here, if you don't eat and drink, examining the situation, your verse 29, you're drinking judgment to yourself. Eating this bread and drinking this cup can be a blessing if you do it judging yourself. But if you do it without judging yourself, the same thing is not neutral. You are bringing judgment upon yourself. And it says that judgment can be, verse 30, weakness, sickness, and a premature death. How many people believe that? There are lots of verses in the Bible many Christians don't believe. For example, that anger is the first of 3 steps to hell, as Jesus said in Matthew 5. That lusting after a woman and sinning sexually with our eyes or with our hands is capable of leading us to hell, as he said in Matthew 5. In the same way that if I don't judge myself in relation to taking the part in the Lord's table as to what was it that made Jesus die on the cross, that it was my sin. Forget about other people's sin. My sin put him on the cross. If I don't take that seriously and judge myself, it says here, some people, God doesn't judge everyone like that, but some are weak and sick and some die prematurely. I believe verse 30, 100%. That there are believers who are weak and sick because they don't judge themselves when they take part in the Lord's table. I believe some of them die prematurely who should not have died because they don't take part in the Lord's table with judging themselves. They don't judge sin in their life. But, verse 31, if we judged ourselves rightly, we will not be judged. There'll be no weakness or sickness or premature death because of this. There could be other causes, but not because of this. We will not be judged. But if the Lord allows a weakness or sickness to come, it's good for you to judge yourself and say the Lord is disciplining you so that you're not condemned to the world, verse 32. So, brothers, Whenever you come together, let us judge ourselves and then take part. It's very, very important. What am I proclaiming? Verse 26, I'm proclaiming the Lord's death, that he died for my sin and that I have died to sin with him. And I want to keep that attitude towards sin as I take part in the Lord's table. Every time I take part in it, I'm being reminded that I must have a radical attitude towards sin in my thoughts, in my words, and in my deeds, and in my attitude to money and being righteous, and in my thought life and in my motives and in my relationships. Radical attitude towards sin. This is what I'm testifying to as I break bread today and drink the cup. I pray it'll be true in your life. Amen.